Um, we're going to do 2 minutes, with with our budget. And again, I feel kind of iffy here because we only had, we got enough commission. Is that okay? That we just go ahead and just go around and whoever comes in. And so the main thing we want to do today is to hear, based on what the budget that's been recommended by the mayor, what we heard, and we're going to go around and just share your top issue and not be long-winded and very detailed. And we could really get out of here at a decent hour. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and start with Commissioner. Let's start with Mayor. Did you? No, you already had your say so.
Drop it on your doorstep.
Commissioner Davenport.
So we're on 2 minutes of the budget.
What would you like to see? What do you got questions about?
I have a question about the fire department emergency management, a detail. You sent us an email about a month and a half ago, and I can't find it.
About the emergency management coordinator?
Yeah, coordinator, like the job title of that position. Like what that position will entail, how that would differ from like the COVID emergency management that we had during COVID. I'd like to see more litter surveillance cameras and a possible additional and staff to help monitor those cameras. If landscape management for when it comes to cutting grass and stuff, that's on the landscape or central services.
Well, a little bit of both.
Okay, if that.
Landscape is under central services and then, yes, it's central services.
Okay, if that could be out, if that could be contracted out to independent contractors that would help with our minority business program, possibly, what would that cost be?
And Commissioner, if I might, do you mean that we would eliminate the current positions?
No.
Okay, any extra level of service? Yeah. Yeah.
What would the cost be for contracting out instead of adding an additional group? We saw numbers yesterday for like 608,000. So to support some of our departments that are struggling, just to look at additional funds for stormwater department, our neighborhood traffic management, signage, traffic engineering, the TPW and central services. And that's just a high level, from the work sessions that we've had over the past 2 years, we've seen, and solid waste, as well, have stated that each of our departments are.
This time we're going to get stopped by music, not lights.
You see me do this, that's your 30 seconds.
Okay, then when the music goes, it's
The
it.
yellow light and the music's the red light.
Thank you. We are really stepping up. Thank you. And we'll go back around. So if something else comes up. Commissioner Myers is just sitting down. So what I'll do is I will go to my right and go to Commissioner Link. What do you have on your mind and heart?
At the top, I really want to see us fund that firefighters request. I think we're committed to that. I'm really concerned about some of the needs in our sheriff's department and our public defender's department in relation to the unfunded mandate of House Bill 301, the integration retainer House Bill. Those departments are going to made requests, and I think at the very least we should honor those requests. I don't know if there's any state funding to make up for some of the additional duties that these departments perform. So those are obligated.
I share some of the same sentiments as Commissioner Link and Davenport. TPW and our public works and solid waste, as well as the firefighter request, I feel like because we, champion for them to receive collective bargaining, then we have to see, as well as the sheriff's office, we're gonna have a jail, a safe jail that, you know, we want to reduce recidivism, then funding the jail's request, as well as the DA's office. I'm gonna keep it long, but the DA's office, to see the work that they do with happen in our community, to, you know, allow them to have more staff, I think is really needed to get the impact of breathing the process, having someone there. So that's it for me.
All right. I largely agree with everything I've heard so far. I'd like us to go ahead and while we're doing this, use some of that, ARPA money that seems like it's carried over from a couple of funds that are running out, like the admin stuff or whatever, to pay for the remainder of the, Center for Racial Justice and Black Futures. The quasi-governmental requests, all of those seem reasonable to me, and I think is a feasible amount for us to fund. The expansion of the community partnerships program that we approved in our CDO this year, I think we should add to the budget for next year an amount that's equivalent, so there's the same amount available to be competed for. And then largely kind of echoing what Commissioner Davenport was saying, I'm really interested in infrastructure things generally. We have backlogs all over the place, and so where we can make up some of that difference, that seems like a more sustainable way to use our unallocated fund balance that's above the minimum we need, which is largely where I'm seeing us getting the funding from. But we can probably use ARPA for the two things that are recommended to the manager's report. And then the other things that the manager kind of outlined for us in the last meeting made sense to me as well, like the central services truck and stuff like that. So yeah, without getting deep in the weeds about that, I think high level, those are probably my big ones. I am interested in that compost education specialist. And I'm also interested in us getting those ballistic plates, the high caliber bullets for all of our officers. I thought we had already done that, so learning that we hadn't, I'd like for us to do that. And I guess one thing I'm not convinced of, and maybe this could be a source of revenue for that, is whether we need to double the cadet program this year. So maybe that can be part of where we find the funding for that. And I got 5 seconds, so I'm done for now.
Caught up in.
Kind of caught up with on my other pair of classes, but we'll deal with that later. Affordable housing is definitely in there, you know, out there. The thing I'm getting questioned about again and again as a top priority is affordable housing. And I know we have like a future plan, but I would some unallocated funds for that. The other thing that I'm asked about again and again, and the places that I was just visiting today is the youth development programs, just because we have so many people who are struggling and we can talk about it, but we don't have any money set aside for next year. We're not going to be able to continue that work. I did ask a question about the fire that I can follow up on the cardiac equipment for the firefighters that I had been, so I don't know what the response was, but that was cut down like $130,000 from what the request was. And it looked to me like it was a request over a couple of years. But again, I don't know what the response is on that. Is this supposed to be in addition to what we said the other night?
It's a recap.
It's a recap?
And an addition, yeah, and an addition.
Okay.
Recap in addition, yes.
Recap in addition, yeah, we mentioned that, and we have a time limit, right? I mentioned that I really want to see that the grants, the sustainability office get that grant so we can get more money to people and to the ACC Gov to do the project, save energy, save our expenses, save the planet, etc. And is there anything else I left this time through? That's just going to do it for now. I'll think about my glasses.
And you think where your glasses?
I have 3 kinds of glasses.
Well, I'm just going to chime in. I do believe we need to, support the DA's request, especially since the VOCA fund, we don't have the VOCA funds this year. And, the sheriff's, the sheriff's request as we move forward, again, I think Commissioner Link, Bill 301. Infrastructure and housing are my top ones. Infrastructure and housing are my top ones. And I guess when I say infrastructure, it's stormwater, it's infrastructure. So those are my, and I just want to put it out there, it's probably, I am interested in lowering, the military. Okay. How did I do, Jessica?
1 minute.
All right. Do we need to take a break? Okay.
So, you did mention something, so I'm not interested in lowering the mill rate. And my train of thought behind that is, we have a referendum coming in November that we voted on, that's gonna cap the mill rate. Athens is growing, and so are the needs of Athens. Over the past 6 years, we've lowered the mill rate, rightfully so, to help people through COVID, to help people through financial time. But, Athens continues to grow. I'm noticing each department like screaming at us that they are in a deficit. They are struggling to keep up with the demands of the community. So I would suggest that at least until this referendum is passed, maybe next year, lower it, but just for right now, to hold off. But, we are a democracy, and I'm just going for it.
Okay. Jesse?
So in another 2 minutes. I agree with Commissioner Davenport, similar rationale, and also I see unallocated fund balance as the thing we can dip into to do a lot of what we're talking about this year, but that's not necessarily something we're gonna get, certainly in the same amount next year, and definitely not if we cut the millage rate again, cut the millage rate year after year. So I don't think we need to do that again this year. I can't believe, because it's literally the thing I've talked about first and foremost every other meeting, so like Commissioner Meyer started with it. Affordable housing to me is the big one, and specifically that top recommendation in our affordable housing investment strategy of a local housing fund, and specifically thinking about gap financing for LIHTC projects. That's a big chunk of money, but I think we need to get that ball rolling. We're in crisis mode, we hear about it all the time. So that's probably actually the biggest dollar figure that I think we need to be thinking about here. And then I thought the state court request was also very rational and reasonable. And if we want to set ourselves up for success in future years, we should do that. I wanted to specify with the sheriffs that in addition to the salary question or signing bonuses, or however we want to try to approach that as a group, the food request seems crucial to me. I mean, unacceptable that there's rotten food in the jail.
If I might, that was a statement made that we haven't verified.
I appreciate that clarification. So I guess we'll wait for verification, but I want to make sure that there's decent food there. And similarly, I have a question about the healthcare contract. I'm just curious whether the discrepancy between the requests that you see in the budget and the mayor's recommended amount reflects reduction in services as a result of that discrepancy, or if it's just that we're not providing additional services. I'm okay with us not funding additional services, but I'm not okay with us cutting medical services at the jail. And then I still have lots to review that I haven't really gotten through. For 2 minutes.
And just for detail, I recommended on the order of $150,000 increase. And the request was for just north of $1 million. My belief is that 150 funds continuity of current services, but not new services. But maybe the manager can track that down to be sure.
I can track that.
I'd want to throw my 2 cents about the housing joint too, like that is a crisis. We're kind of overdue and following up on, and now we have this plan that a lot went into. We need to start acting on it.
I'm gonna chime in here, even though I'm sort of taking. Affordable housing to me is number one, been number one. I did not support the housing consultant recommendation. I do think there's things that we could do to put housing up and running without putting monies in funds. We have so many funds. So I just want to put that, when I said that I support housing, I'm supporting actual planning and developing and moving forward, not in the bank. Hold up for 1 minute. Commissioner, Ronnie, we were going over what we would like to see out of all the, things, requests we've heard or any suggestions, and we were going around. Do you have anything you want to take a minute?
I'm gonna need a minute. Let me get acclimated. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Davenport?
No, I was just gonna piggyback to, I agree, to your assessment about housing. I think we need to have a much bigger discussion with housing. It's just not that people need mortgages and build houses. Some people do like the rental market. They're transit, they move around a lot. But also code, ordinances, excuse me. Like I think the idea of tiny homes would be perfect for Athens, but I don't believe that the code, the ordinance that we have in place now support that. Then, I do enjoy that we agreed upon the inclusionary housing, but it is more than just housing that we're looking at. We need to put people into homes instead of having their own mortgage. But that's just a much bigger discussion.
And I agree about a bigger
Yeah.
a bigger conversation. But we move money around like a shell game. I can't even keep up with everything. So that's what I'm saying, that it shouldn't be sitting there 20 years from now, trying to figure out where we're gonna put housing. We have land, Commissioner Hamby has pulled up some data on parcels that are ready to build, but we don't ever have that discussion or recommendation to actually do. So yes, I'm agreeing with you, but I am not agreeing to just putting money in pots and buckets. I don't think that's how we solve the problem. I do want to comment to Commissioner. It was Commissioner Hool, I guess Commissioner Davenport, about the millage rate. That's my recommendation. That's my thought about. Did I go to?
Well,
I
so
jumped.
you had about a minute, then Patrick went for a minute, and then you went for another minute. So
Okay.
that was 2 after Patrick started, but 2 total for you.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's your meeting. I'm just.
No, I'm doing what you tell me. What am I supposed to do now, Jesse? Tell me
It's your meeting. I'm just telling you 2 minutes.
As far as the military, I think that this community has invested greatly in property taxes. The things that we have been able to do, especially in the social service arenas, is because people's property taxes have made that happen. And we want economic development, but we do not have a plan on how do we, when it comes in, how do we support the property owners? It's like we want economic development, which raises taxes that impact our residents, and then we're expected to expect them to pick up that load. So that's my thought, and it goes back to, again, what you're saying, Patrick. We do not have time, or we have not talked about all the pros and cons on some of these things. So it may not happen, but I do think that our residents deserve to see us, what their property taxes are going. That's fine. I don't see anybody raising a hand. Commissioner?
I thought we were going around.
Well, I
Yeah.
was, but it looks like she's trying to get caught up.
Okay.
And Mike is saying he don't have nothing to say, so it's on you.
Yeah, I do also want to, address the situation with the sheriff's pay in some way or other. And I think that we're gonna, with the changes in the state law about the number of people who have to, well, have to be, cannot have to be given bail. There's gonna be more people in there. There's gonna be more people with that immigration bill. We have the police fully staffed, and we're just looks to me like we're getting sort of a crisis situation mounting. I do believe that with the affordable housing, the kind of money that's needed to do real affordable housing where people who are at 60 or 80% of the median income are able to get into rental houses needs gap funding. That's clear from everything we've read, we've been presenting everything. The kind of financing. I spent an hour or so over in Clark Gardens this afternoon, and the kind of housing that we have that is really subpar. We could do better for people who are working at these low wage jobs. And most of them are rented. And I think one of those documents, which I did look at, the number of people who are paying more than 30% of their income, their household income among renters is just, I don't know, it was like 60%. I can't remember which document that was on one of these ones I read, but quite high. No, it was in one of these things I read this afternoon that we were giving out. It was quite high. So the affordable housing, I don't know what's going to happen with that sales tax, and that sales tax is uncertain. It hits. It's a regressive tax. Okay. Anyway, so I'm for looking at affordable housing. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Commissioner Davenport?
Right, and heavy.
No, I can
Just look.
chime in.
Just look.
You know what? I'm running this. Okay.
So in March of last year, we did do I believe it was in March of last year that we had a work session. In March of 2023, we agreed to do a pay study for the sheriff. Then we voted on it in June. It raised their rates, I think $4,000, their pay. So my train of thought is just equity across all of our public safety here, and not just because I just feel that even that the fire department has their collective bargaining, that other entities may have some issues that sheriff preferential pay. So I agree with doing a complete study of all of our law enforcement and looking at just the work duties and looking at the competitive market like we're doing with county employees.
I'm just going to swing around, just call your name, and if you got something to say, fine. Commissioner Hall.
Okay, I guess really all I have to say right now is just kind of in response to what I've heard from the room. I do think it's important that we get the seed money into the local housing fund. I think that is how we get housing built. I don't think we as a government are going to be able to build it very quickly. And the strike fund is part of how we can incentivize real affordable housing being built. But I think the affordable housing investment strategy does map out pretty clearly how that fund can lead to private development with a fairly small fraction of investment from us, certainly much smaller than we've put into, say, Bethel, leading to, deeply subsidized housing for people, much more deeply than you're going to get on the private market. And so if we want rents to be affordable for people who live here, I think we need to financially incentivize it the way other communities have done with some success. I think if we put the money into the fund and it doesn't, I hear, I guess I have to, you are the chair, so I'll address you. I hear your concern, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, that the funding will just sit there and not get used. And I guess if that's the case, we can reallocate it. It's our fund to reallocate. But I think if we don't create it and see whether it can be used, give it a year or two to get off the ground, then we don't know whether that'll work. But it seems like there's good odds that it could work. And I hope that we will use the opportunity we've got before us to try to get some housing built. I'd love to live in a place like Denmark, where the government could build more housing, but we don't. And so we're going to need private developers to build most of it. And this is the way we can get them to build it for people here to afford it. Or at least the best idea I've heard so far. And then I just want to say for the sheriff's salaries, I think the justification, I'm out of my 2 minutes. That's my last thought for if we have one more go around.
Okay. I'm gonna go this way. Commissioner Lane?
Yeah, regarding the housing fund, you know, I hear your concerns about the funds just sitting there, but if we don't start putting them in, putting funding into it, never gonna get there. You know, and I'm not opposed to having that fund lurking in the background because you never know when opportunities are gonna arise. Like, we've been in that situation where having that fund to dip into, you know, there could be a hotel or a dilapidated apartment complex, and if we could get a hold of it, we could ensure that it is picked up and redeveloped into affordable housing. So, I'm all about getting started on that fund.
Well, I'm not opposed to putting seed money in the strike fund, but in 2 years, my district will no longer be my district because in 10 years, private developers will have bought all of the land, raised the value of houses, therefore pushing longtime residents in my community out. So you can go, I don't oppose it, but again, building houses in my community and not just apartments, but home ownership, because that is economic development as well as generational wealth. We can't wait on the strike fund. You know, as a government, let's do it. But as a commissioner, we should have moved yesterday. And to your point about private developers, we have private developers building apartments all the time. And we find money to put people in apartments, no shades, but affordable housing, single family housing, where constituents are no longer on top of each other and have the opportunity to own homes is affordable housing, it's equitable housing, it's decent housing.
And I will say, I'll take a commercial break and say that I know that the commissioners that are more for putting money into the funds have not been at any of the housing summits. So I will invite those next Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
I was there.
Oh, you were at the last one. I've done two.
I've been at both.
Oh, excuse me. See, they correct me.
Yeah.
But there was so many ideas that never got picked up on from those summits. Next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and we're looking at a location, NACA will be coming to talk about their program. So as soon as we lock down a location, I've already talked to the mayor, the manager. I don't like making suggestions if I don't like having objections or issues if I don't have a possible solution. So you will receive an email from me as soon as we lock down the space, but it will be next Wednesday, the 22nd at 10 o'clock. So that will be an option to some of the concerns that I'm hearing. And some things that we could do. And you know what? We could do things in small pieces. We don't have to do big pieces. We have, I think I sent the manager a question about the property that we own that Advantage had for something.
Houses.
That housing thing, I mean, why, let's start there, we still have that daycare center that is unoccupied. We've talked about it across the street on Bray Street. We have empty buildings that might need to be whatever. Commissioner Anthony, everything.
Weston, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner, right?
Yeah, thanks for your patience with my day. Truck breaking down in Oglethorpe County. Just saying, but I made it to the landfill, broke down empty, so empty of gas too. But anyway, here I am, and I'm just trying to just say, I'm just getting the paperwork into my book from previous gotta get 3-hole punches in the new one. And, that's fine. I know where the machine is now. And, I guess for me, I don't have any big rock type adjustments to make. Some of the things that I'm thinking about supporting are sort of the smaller things. There's a lot of the current budget that came from the mayor that, I agree with. I'm looking to, I guess, move some where the money comes from around. I was a little motivated with Commissioner Link's discussion the other night about the ARPA money and one-time use. So I want to spend some time looking at that, especially like the vehicle purchases that we've been hearing about, from people. So the dollar amount, I saw the response about the ARPA interest. Do we have a dollar amount to come forward with what that is?
Yes, ma'am. I know, Mayor Pro Tem, with your permission, we suspect it to be somewhere just slightly north of 3 million by the time program's over, but we can get you a more.
I mean, like at this point,
Like, if you'll remember, when we were talking about the purchase of 440 College, I think it was somewhere in the realm of 2.4 million.
Yeah.
And of course, that there is still a bolus of funds that are being invested. And so if we had to project it out, that Chris, somewhere around 3 million.
Yeah, 3
if you're saying we've used,
3.2 million.
okay. But it's not sitting there allocated.
No, that's the
No,
interest.
That
well,
is the interest,
so with no,
unallocated.
we put it into the unallocated fund balance and we suggested that we use it for the purchase of the building. Y'all said, no, we want to keep that clean.
Right.
And so it is in unallocated fund balance. But when you pull it out, that's going to bring that level down closer to the 2-month operating. So just know that what's in there above the 2-month operating that you may be eyeing to help fund this,
Okay.
3.2 million, that's going to be ARPA interest.
Gotcha. And then a lot of my questions were also about some other fund balances to get. So I am less able to engage on a detailed level tonight, but I guess I'm curious, and I may have missed it. Are we all in agreement about not raising the millage rate? Is that something that there's a consensus on, not raising the millage rate? Not raising it? Because it seems to me like if we're working with all these requests, if we all started out with, we're going to try to make it work without raising the millage rate, that would be, I think, helpful for us all.
Let's go to the school board. Let's go to 18.
Hold up for 1 minute. I'm going to, if y'all do not mind, I give Commissioner Rice a few extra moments since she started.
Yeah.
I suppose.
So is that something that we all are agreement on to work within this? And if there was a way that we could even reduce it? But again, I haven't looked at the details enough, but is that a consensus?
No, that was discussed before you got here.
Okay, and there's not a consensus. Some people want to raise the millage rate?
I'm not interested in raising it. I'm not particularly interested in lowering it either. I mean, I don't like this seesaw kind of thing. We did lower it last year and we have so many needs this year and, their funds are scarce. But I'm not interested in it because, yeah, the values are going up and, I don't think it's equitable across the county how much the values are going up. But
Okay, so,
I think stability.
right. Is that the consensus that I missed? Was it?
It wasn't a consensus. Commissioner Davenport, Commissioner Moore, and now Commissioner Lincoln spoke to it. They're not interested in lowering.
But others are hopeful that there could be a way.
Well, I came in a little late.
I'm sorry.
So there was one mention of it. I think you first asked about raising it. I'm not interested in raising
Okay.
it. I'm still thinking through some of the
And
things.
either, okay. But I do agree that there's, I'm hopeful for ways for funds to come forward and help out with things we've heard. But I'm not sure what. Anyway, again, it's pebbles, rocks. It's not big. Unless we were able to lower the millage rate some, because I know that just a little bit helps. And we've already been having to explain to people it's not rate just because your property, again, every year we have to explain that it's the assessments. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
Oh, didn't that just talk?
But you were talking,
I feel like everyone over there hasn't talked. People I'm looking at haven't talked as much.
Um,
I went around, it should.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I.
We haven't done a go round about the millage rate, so if Commissioner Wright's asking us for that. We could do
Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah,
Go
I'm
around?
curious.
I'm more interested in making sure we take care of these priorities first, and then I'll look at the, if there's millage rate there. So I want to, in terms of looking, I want to start by looking at some of the things that we got the information from the manager on, in terms of the firefighters, some of the information we got the other day, looking at that all, looking at whether or not we could put some money to affordable housing, and some of the other ideas. And then, so I'm more interested in looking at some of these before decreasing the millage rate. So I haven't looked at all the numbers yet.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just hopeful that we're gonna try to work within the budget, which is the bucket with the current millage rate.
I'm not interested in raising it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm definitely not interested in raising.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'm interested in working in the current bucket. Not interested in lowering. Before you came in, we have had work session after work session of departments struggling, like years behind, 5, 10 years behind, millions of dollars in deficit of getting our streets paved, traffic calming, signs up, and that that we've lowered our millage rate 6 years in a row. And it's not, and the fact that Athens is growing, we're adding new residents every day, but at the end of the day, I just feel that we're in a good position. We got a referendum coming in November that will probably cap for our millage rate or our property assessment in the future. So I just don't want to race towards insolvency. Like, we have some serious needs. I hear constituents all the time saying, I need this, I need this. And I'm like, well, I mean, we have a limited budget. You have to wait till next year. It's like, traffic calming.
Commissioner Hall?
Yeah, and I think in the first go around, I basically said ditto Commissioner Davenport. I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world for us to go back to what the millage rate was last year, which would be a very, very, very minor increase, but I'm not saying that we need to do that. I don't think I mean, if we did that, we would catch up on the massive backlogs that Commissioner Davenport is talking about quicker. And I don't think it's great for us to keep letting those backlogs grow. So I think we need to find a way to do that. And maybe another way to do that is to be serious about committing ahead of time in this next round of T-SPLOS that a super majority of that funding is going to go to those backlogs. But I think we need to take seriously that it's, in addition to all the things Commissioner Davenport said, there's the failing pipes, there's failing bridges with failing ratings right now. We have fleet that's super underfunded. We might be finally catching up on that. We have facilities that are super underfunded. The past few years, we've been blessed with an unprecedented influx of federal money, the ARPA and the CARES and all that. And the budgetary blessing, but the curse for services has been the staff shortage. But now we're staffing up. We don't have the vacancy rates we did, and the ARPA monies and the CARES is going to be gone. So I don't see how we set ourselves up for future success at all by continuing to treat the millage rate like a thing we can cut every year. So yeah, I'd hope that we would, to use your language, Commissioner Wright, work within the budget that we've got before us and then maybe not go up or down on the rate and just think about the funding that's there. At least this year, thanks to the years prior to now with vacancy rates and ARPA, we have a pretty healthy unallocated fund balance that I think gives us some flexibility to do the dire stuff. And I'd hope we'd use that. I'm also really cautious about us using too much of what's left of the ARPA when we still have a couple of big ARPA projects to see through.
Commissioner Lane?
She kind of started it all.
Yeah, I kind of started, I think I already said my piece. Ability.
I agree with Commissioner.
I guess my thought again about the millage rate and property taxes, I guess I'm just old school. It really doesn't it's not how much money that we have, it's how we spend it.
Right.
And we have done some spending that I have objected to in the past, and now we're paying for it. And the one big one is downtown toilet. And we pay a maintenance fee on that. How much is that maintenance fee annually?
38,000, I think, or more. I think it went up last year.
I believe that's correct.
$38,000 for a toilet that I'm not going to use, and a lot of other people are not going to. So it's not always the money, it's how you spend your money. And I can name some other things that everybody in this community doesn't benefit from. So with that, and I think there's people smart enough on our staff that could project when we bring in new development, what kind of formula can we come up with that when new development comes in over here, what can we do over here to give relief to our taxpayers? We're asking people to pay taxes on stuff they don't even use in this town. And I say that because North Avenue has been totally neglected. So, and I'm just after 5 years, just figuring out why. So I'm gonna be, like I said, I know we gotta vote, we gotta be like team players, but please look at what we've already spent money on and see what value it brings and who does it bring value to. Infrastructure should have been our top priority. And the ARPA money has been a literal curse right now. It has been a curse. Because I think that we thought this was going to last forever. I'd rather spend all the ARPA money. Go.
I'm just listening, but I'll just correct one thing. We haven't cut the millage rate the past 6 times, the past 6 years. It's only been since 2015, we've reduced it 3 times.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for
Okay.
engaging on that topic, because I think that helps us as we move the shell game or move things around.
Okay. That was like a really healthy exercise there. I don't know if there's another topic. I think we've heard from affordable housing, millage rate, anything broad. Commissioner Myers.
It's broad in that I think if you're looking at the mayor's budget and where the money is going, so much of it is going to salaries and staff. You know, the projects that people see in the community, and I don't remember the toilet where the funding was from, but I will say it's kept very clean and I use it regularly for the public. But I'm not sure where that was coming from, but a lot of the things that people see are SPLOST and T-SPLOST projects and so forth. So I just, I'm thinking of this as much on, I have more expenses. And the county has more expenses. We have more people getting hired. That's more expenses. So I think, it's really important to remember that the general budget is mostly going to, staffing departments and keeping things running as they are. I mean, I would throw out an idea. We're coming through the T-SPLOST. We're talking about infrastructure. I'm seeding an idea. I would love it if when we got to that, we put up to 50% of the money towards infrastructure needs. And right up front to the beginning. And that is something we're going to be discussing by the end of the fall, or if not before. So, and I don't know how people feel about that, but I think it's clear that we all understand about the infrastructure needs. And that's a big budget thing, but it's from that sales tax.
Commissioner Davenport?
I've got you.
I guess I'll just, regarding the salaries, my take on why doing something about the sheriff's office salaries, try to give in this short amount of time here, is when we do salary studies, they're going to look at certain factors that are standard to look at. And they usually look at things like market and then what they'll call internal equity or external equity. And then they define the market and however we, agree for them to, which may or may not include Atlanta. But I think we found that where those analyses generally leave us at times are with gaps. There's another data point that's never used in those studies that I think is very relevant, which is vacancy rate. And we have data around where we have chronic vacancy rates. And that to me is the justification, not only for the deputy salaries, where I think we can see how part of that equation is likely to be that there's that external competition with people who are getting into a very similar field, but get a much higher bonus and a higher salary. But also with things like CDLs and some of the manual labor positions that are chronically vacant in our government. And so I'm actually interested in us doing this for more than just the deputies. That one seems particularly dire because of the danger it poses for everyone in the jail, both the people incarcerated there and the workers. But certainly when we're talking about adequately meeting the service needs of our community, we've got to find ways to fill those other chronic vacancies that we've gotten reports on. And so in my mind, it's the chronic vacancy rate is that key extra data point that we can use to justify these specific things that the market has just failed to value enough, not only here, but all over the place. And so, so I think if we value it, we can choose to value it, recognizing the vacancy as the factor. And the only other thing I'll say with my last 10 seconds is the infrastructure backlog that we have has taken decades to accrue. And so continuing to cut the millage rate does not help us catch up.
You hit it right on the nose there. Oh, God.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could,
Yes,
I know you're not asking for my responses on
I
these
sure
things,
was that.
but if you'd like an easy win, I'm glad to give it to you.
I love a win. Go for it.
So I appreciate those comments, and I meet with the sheriff on a quarterly basis in his office. And we talked about retention bonuses, and I sent him an email asking him that, you know, now that the police, and I talked to the HR about this as well, you know, the police are filling up, so maybe rationing down theirs and then increasing the sheriff's office from 6,000 to 10,000. And the reason why there's a disparity there is the police department went and got a grant that they're using to up those. And so I went to Chief Salters when I found that out, or remembered that. And I asked Chief Salters if he would go to the granting agency and see if, you know, this other public safety agency could perhaps access those funds. And he did that recently and they agreed. And so we have a funding source that's not general fund. I had already asked the sheriff, I said, look, we should increase yours. Do you have, I know you've got salary savings with the vacancy, so let's just go ahead and work towards that. But now we could actually use grant funding to do that. So as you're doing your calculus for the budget solve, I think we can use the grant funds and that's less dollars you have to devote here. So thank you for letting me talk.
Well, actually, Sheriff mentioned that when he spoke on, whatever night that was, Tuesday night. He mentioned that he didn't say how much, but he did say there was that collaboration. So, but we don't know the dollar amount.
Right.
What that looks like.
Well, it was a sizable grant. So I think there's more than enough to share. And what the police are saying is that because the grant's there, they don't necessarily need to take theirs down. They want to continue to try and go all the way up, but there's enough to share with the sheriff's office through the granting agency. So I would recommend that. And we can, if you're interested, we can look at that.
So is that something you can give us some math on so that we would know how, if that meets our interest of helping?
Well, yes, ma'am. And the basics are, we would increase the current hiring incentive from $6,000 the sheriff's office to $10,000. And there's some math in your handout that we handed you where there's 32 positions and 380,000. Of course, you know, there's always going to be turnover. And I think there's plenty in the grant to handle that.
So that's in today's handout?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, thanks.
Ma'am.
And my highlight and now that. Commissioner Holt.
I mean, I'll try to keep it really brief, but just, I think that helps us with the bonus part, but I think there is still this salary question. And the vacancy rate is one indicator, maybe not the only one. We've talked a lot about what peer communities do and things like that. And I think there's just, the reality in this country is that working in a jail is not valued as much as being a cop on the street, but it's not necessarily any less dangerous. And actually the suicide rate for correctional officers is higher, like dramatically higher than police officers, dramatically higher than returning veterans. So there are dangers in that job that the market has not adequately compensated for, that I think we can recognize as part of our rationale for trying to bring more parity between those two departments. So that's part of my argument as well for why I think the salary question is still relevant. it's not at all devaluing the work of the police. I think it's just recognizing that there's unrecognized value in the work of sheriff's deputies.
And is there anybody else?
I've got something to say. If you want me to add on to something about pay inequities and pay disparities, I'd like to see information regarding the memo Judd sent with regards to some pay inequities occurring with some staff attorneys in our court system. And it's my understanding that there's an agenda, I think there's an agenda report. I'd just like to know what the dollar amount is that we need to look at to address those inequities that have occurred, specifically for some women and minorities in the judicial system.
And the thing that I was going to mention.
And I'd like to get those numbers so that we could perhaps put them in this budget. Do you want me?
Yeah. So my understanding is just north of 100,000.
Okay. I think that could be.
And we are looking at potential, Judd is reviewing and we'll have some more information tomorrow on a potential solution to that.
Okay. Is there going to be an agenda report to that effect that is going to be on an agenda, or is this something we need to put in the budget?
I think we could do it without plugging it into the budget, but I've got to look at the draft agenda report first. I've not seen that.
Okay. When do you think we'll know that?
Well, tomorrow when Judd
Okay.
shares his
Just
opinion,
trying to figure out what,
and then
how we need to.
if the mayor is so inclined, you could add that under suspension of rules. But we could have it out, hopefully over the weekend, if it all works out. Otherwise, I guess a fallback would be to put it in the budget and to give it time to get worked out.
Okay, thanks.
The only thing I was going to say on Tuesday, Manager Williams, you said that the sheriff's, I guess it's I guess you go through a process to figure out who gets paid what and it's, all technical. And compared to other jurisdictions, that's what you said. But most jurisdictions, especially around us, only have sheriffs. They don't have police. So I want to make sure when we're making comparisons that is equitable to other areas that actually have police and not just sheriffs, because constitutionally, that's all we really need is a sheriff. But if we're going to do a comparison, it should be with jurisdictions that have a police department and a sheriff's department. And that may be the case. I just want to put it out.
Well, what I'd like to do is capture that question and we'll clarify that. That was brought up back when this all went on, so there was some difference there. I don't know if all the comparators were, but at least some or most were. And I hope this is helpful to you. So the last pay study was 2018, and I don't know what happened then, but for years, what you're seeking to do was in place. That they had the entry level salaries for fire, corrections, police, sheriffs, so on and so forth, were all the same. Every department is slightly different in terms of rank. So there were different, and when 2018, when the commission authorized it, in 2019, the analysis was done, because of the external comparators, what we found was that the police were underpaid and some other departments were overpaid compared to the market. And there is a methodology, a point factor classification system that is used. I won't get technical about that. And so it produces a recommendation. And so that's what we have. Now, I want y'all to know that staff is not against this thing. It's up to y'all. But if we have to recommend something other than what case studies say that have a proven methodology, then it's somewhat arbitrary. But certainly, and this would be pending, I think Judd was going to look into this further. We gave you a quick answer the other night. He said, well, hold on, let me look at it. But ultimately, if that's what the commission chooses to do, that's fine. It pending whatever Judd said. So we just can't give you a number and say, we'll do this because we've got a study in our hand that says that, so, but it's okay. And I think it should give you some comfort that this would happen before. Just the latest study wasn't built on that precedent. Latest 3 studies.
Commissioner who?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Manager Williams. That was helpful. And I guess I'll just add that, like, we had this conversation last year too, and this commission did not decide to jump on it last year. But last year, we still had a very high vacancy rate in our police department too. Well, now we're hearing that the police department's about to be full staff, certainly best staffing levels it's had in a very long time, if ever. But the sheriff's office is still struggling. And
But I
so
would
that's
say-
where now I think there's a pretty solid logic behind the vacancy rate being a justification and that history isn't.
And I would like to say too, that I do want to credit this commission with investing in the police department with higher salaries. And that has made a difference, but it's not the only difference. And I think you should talk to officers over there too. There's a lot of great things going on, command staff, and I'm just saying that that's the feeling I'm getting. And when I talk to people, they're like, we like the direction things are going in. So the pay helped a great deal, and no doubt it would help the sheriff's office too.
Commissioner Davenport?
Non-budget question. Is it true that UGA police officer starting pay is gonna be a lot higher?
Yes.
Like
17,000.
it's 70? And our starting is 50.
Yes.
We're
Well,
gonna be empty again.
but, and that's also not just sworn or patrol officers, but that's also communications personnel as well. Now, I've been told that there may be a UGA officer coming over despite the pay differential because they like what's going on at the police department, to my earlier point. So there's a myriad of things that feed morale, but pay is a huge part of it, no doubt.
I see no hands, and Mike is getting up and we've been here for about an hour. Take a break. Have a eat, if you like. Want food? I don't know.
Send this to you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just, Madam Mayor,
Before everybody moves.
just thinking what may be helpful. I don't know if, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, you want to kind of take the suggestions you've gotten and, put a spreadsheet together with those.
Well, I assume that is what Assistant Manager Nikki was doing.
I put those.
Sorry.
So just, kind of checking between you and staff is what you would like to do, put a spreadsheet together that would include, what you've heard from the body, taking into account those unallocated fund balance numbers that you've seen already. And I guess my question is, just kind of observing the conversation, do you want to say, all right, we've done everything we could do for tonight? Or do you want to take a break and come back and
Now, that suggestion is much better. I really like that one. Is there anything else on anybody's heart and mind that they need to say? Let's shut this thing down.
so you'll then have the
And,
kind of like placeholder meeting next.
yeah, and I just assumed that I assumed, and maybe I shouldn't have, that you were taking notes.
We're all taking notes.
Okay.
Sarah, Tim.
And so therefore you would compile a spreadsheet and send to us.
Well,
That's what I assumed.
we can put the top, we don't know what your amounts are, but we can put the topics and you can.
Yeah, the topics,
Yeah.
yeah. I would rather do that than to stay here until 9 just to sit here, but yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage, so I learned when I arrived here that we had received the spreadsheet from finance that's like modeled after the one we've had each year on Tuesday. And I didn't realize it because when Manager Williams handed us, I thought that his email was just including the things he was handing us. I didn't realize it also had that. So if people want to tinker between now and the agenda setting meeting, that's a document we have available to us.
Oh,
And
yeah.
maybe we can also have the goal, not necessarily to say we're putting these forward, but just to have something that the public can see too. If we can like get it to the clerk by, Monday or Tuesday morning, like drafts or whatever on that. Things for us all to refer to with each other to try to move the conversation forward.
I'm not sure that showing the public things before we've even had the second public taxpayer bill of rights feedback.
Fair.
It might present as if we're not listening. If we're trying to put something out at this, we have another week, the week of Memorial Day, which is kind of giving us, I think, more time than we usually have there.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I guess just So we have like drafts to look at, so we can kind of say like, okay, here's the 90% we agree on and debate the last 10% or something, you know?
When you said share it with the public, I mean, if it's, anyway, we did, it's sticky.
Well, I do think that even people who are watching, even though it's not, it's not percentage who did what, I do think that there's no harm in putting in writing what we've talked about because it's public. And so I do agree, but I also agree with you that the June 5th should be a time when we're kind of meshing stuff together. Commissioner, that's I'm just saying this, Commissioner.
Yeah, I did see that spreadsheet, but I've been busy not looking at it, but is the manager's office going to do some work on that spreadsheet also? So, I mean, are you going to be putting anything into that spreadsheet? I just want to understand because it was a discussion. You were like, oh, someone from you're taking notes and are gonna put something into that spreadsheet.
I think they're gonna do topics and we enter the numbers.
But are you gonna put in some of the things that, I guess what I'm asking about is like some of the things that the updated numbers that you gave from different areas that you were request or that we heard from the different courts and are you gonna put any of those items in there as well? Because there's a lot of smaller items, from some of the stuff that you've given us, over this time.
Yes.
Carol, do you want to make a request of them?
Well, I just wanted to it sounded like they were gonna be doing that. I just wanted to find out what they were actually going to
Well,
do.
I didn't even see it that way. I just saw it as the general, topics. So is that a request that you
Yeah, I guess it's
them to have to fill it in a little
The
bit?
answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But let me qualify. So what you're referring to in search for those list of items, Commissioner Thornton asked, well, why are these coming forward now?
Yeah,
So we'll put,
yeah, that's the thing.
we know what those figures are.
Right.
We'll put those in there, but like, for instance, y'all are talking, affordable housing. So we didn't hear a finite figure. So we'll put affordable housing. What we can do is we can identify and what's left in unallocated fund balance down to the 2-month limit. We set that out as a potential
Yes.
source. And then, the taxes, we don't know, we didn't see any consensus there. So there's certain topics we'll put there and let y'all wrestle with that we don't have figures for, but the ones that we do, we'll try and put those in there. And I hear you asking Commissioner Myers that, based on the constitutional officer's presentation on Tuesday, you'd like to see their line items in there with a number.
Right.
It's all in one place and you can pick and choose.
Take it out, whatever else.
Right.
And let me follow up because I know it's a big item on the mind. The mowing discussion here that we had the other day. In that information you gave us, was there some information about contracting out some of that?
Yes. And yes, ma'am.
And then also, is it true that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we had more mowing and we cut it back in recession years?
I don't know, but we'll find out.
That was part of the saving measures during that kind of 2011, 2012 timeframe. I can't remember what remained reduced and what's been restored. But I can certainly indicate that, yeah, in that period, going was, we cut the cutting.
And what you cut was the level of service, right? And that's what is in debate now. And this is no doubt what you think constituents when the grass gets real high. So you can restore that. And the good news is, in the packet that you got tonight, had a chance to look at, staff took to heart what you said. We do think it would be more affordable to do a hybrid approach between our crews and privatization. And they've got, I think, a number somewhere south of 100,000 or so that you could put in the budget, and then we would need to work with y'all. I don't think we're going to solve the level of service question in the next week or two.
Right.
But you put it in there, and then we can come back to you with a proposed program, and you can tell us what you do or don't like about it.
And then you can explain the difference between one mower and the other and whether or not it's just a different mower for curves or if it's for the functionality of the curb system. So I can still understand that.
And in the response tonight, staff is going to try and put together a map of those different road cross sections that we talked about, urban versus rural.
Commissioner,
I have a question about the mowing, the landscaping stuff. The manager gave us this little chart with the options for those eyebrows and stuff. Can you give us information on what the cost is to maintain the traffic circle and boulevard, because that is natural, landscaped, and the county, I mean, the gardening club took it over, the Boulevard Gardening Club. Maybe go out there once every 18 months or so and pull weeds, but it's very much a naturalized but native thing.
Okay, I'm sure staff captured that and we'll get
There
you.
might be other gardening clubs out there or youth groups or something that could just go into something like that once every year or two.
To that point, Commissioner Hamby, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, but he did raise this issue, particularly in, we're talking about the small areas in mowing.
Okay.
And certainly they are more visible and, unlike a rural roadside cross section, once it gets a few inches high, people notice it, especially when they're keeping their own yards around it. So I appreciate you raising that issue and as a level of service thing, whether it's you want to do different types of plantings or not, we'll give you that estimate for that traffic circle and any other
I
information.
mean, it might just be worth trying that approach with some of these.
She mentioned garden.
Clearly, there is some other discussions that people are kind of ramming, because I see Patrick's hand.
I do not support.
No, but would you like to grab your food, sit back here, and get out here a little bit after, is that right? That's right. Yeah, grab your food and we'll try to get out here a little bit after 7, okay?
Great idea.
with Commissioner Davenport.
So it's just a follow-up. The mayor had mentioned an agenda and Blaine about, email coming Friday from Judd. So we'll be voting on that at our Tuesday meeting or Tuesday? Okay. So it won't be a part of our, budget. So when we do our budget, we don't need to worry about that, or that'd be separate line item.
Believe it probably will be separate.
What's
That's
the
what-
topic?
yeah, what's the topic?
What's the topic?
The court staff disparity. So that'll be separate. We don't need to put those figures in the budget because there will be a separate line item.
So,
There'll be more information tomorrow.
which could result in agenda items for June.
I'll follow up.
In the affirmative. If it's not clear, at the very least, you could budget those items. And as soon as it becomes clear and the commission's able to do it, then you can take action.
Thank you.
Okay. Thoughts? Commissioner Hall?
Along the same lines then, this grant that we could get to fund the supplement for hiring sheriff's deputies. That is something we should take a similar approach to, or like maybe it makes sense to have the funding in the budget as a backup in case we don't get the grant or. The grant
We have the
doesn't cover it.
We
We
have,
have it already.
yes, and the funds are
We did.
above. So they're just now gonna
So
include
it's just
sheriff.
applying it differently.
Yes.
Okay.
We just, the grant was applied for by the police department, it was specific to the police department. And the question for the chief is, well, it's another public safety agency, same community. Are, just as y'all would say, police is improving, sheriff's struggling. Can we ask the granting agency if they would allow us to use the funds for the sheriff's office as well? And the answer was in the affirmative.
Okay, so no additional action is required from us for that to happen tomorrow.
That's why I said the mayor pro tem is a yes man.
Yeah, and that's in today's handout.
And so that's something that you don't necessarily have to show on your spreadsheet and compete for the other priorities you're talking about.
And that's why we're leaving early.
Time, but thank you for clarifying.
And that's why we're leaving early. Because that was wrapped up with a vote.
Any other look, others in your mind?
Just the other pending, we sent a text to us if there's email update to the stuff that, I know it was a lot to put together, so I don't want to minimize. But when things come in under the pending, maybe shoot a text so that we can drop everything
Sure.
and go read.
Well, if this helps, I know you don't want 20 versions of this, so we'll put a sort of a deadline for some form of answer. And if you agree, we're gonna put in the same document, but any new text will be blue. So if you haven't read it, then you can read all of it. If you've already read it and then get a different version of it, you'll know why it's different.
Sounds good.
I will say that I said that I didn't get any comments about today's meeting. Commissioner Fisher is having some health issues. And Commissioner Culpepper is at his daughter's dinner graduation. There you have it.
Judd is there as well.
Yes, yes. Commissioner,
He's asked, is the agenda long for?
Yes.
When does it come out? Back to Friday?
Well, tomorrow, and I'm sorry, because we've had a lot of late additions, sort of beat the buzzer because there won't be a meeting. And I apologize for that. And, but there's sort of a crush putting things on there to make sure they get done. And you'll see that it's just, I think it's probably around 25 or so agenda items.
Okay, well, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's not. 40, but- And we've got most all of those posted. There's a few that there might be only a handful at title only tomorrow, but we're going to try and work through that. if we can.
Thanks.
Are we planning to continue this discussion at the agenda setting and finish it on Thursday, or just hear from people on Wednesday? And then
I think, I just would assume that it's gonna kind of play it by ear a little bit, if that's okay. I'd hate to say this is it and it's not it. I will go on record, I know Manager Williams gave us some option, a different option about ARPA money and how we could. What's the word we talked about, putting it back into the,
Reallocating it.
reallocating it. For later, there are,
I'm sorry. Turning it into revenue replacement that survives the deadline,
Yeah.
that allows you to make decisions after the deadline, but only on things that local government will only spend that
That's
money without the federal thing.
so personally, I would really like to spend it all. I mean, whether it's all on big stuff, you know, capital stuff, it's all, with some of the wish lists that our courts and our judicial systems, and I think we could use that money and, or even with the fund balance. But that, I'm just gonna put it on the table, because I know there were some people who kind of disagreed with it, but this ARPA money has been a total nightmare. We need to bring it to an end as soon as possible. Carol, I'm sorry. Carol,
Oh,
did you have your hand up?
no, but no.
I mean, you ain't gotta talk if you don't.
Do we have the chamber presentation? Is that on the agenda for June?
There is
Chamber.
a
Pass.
agenda item that's associated with that.
Thank you.
And I have to think about the school district. Again, we've been adding them. I know in their budget, in their presentation, they didn't have a specific amount. So it could be that we just accept the presentation and then figure it out later. But we need to, we talked about the need to come together perhaps shortly after the break and reconcile what your desires are, and the allocations and whatnot, because if there's any RFPs included in there, we really need to be hitting those hard in August, no doubt, no later.
So anybody around this table can explain to me, the school district's budget compared to our budget. I understand that they have, what, 57 million imbalance plus,
I'm not sure, but we can find out.
and that's gonna make a huge difference in how we work together. I think we have done our part, or the best we could with their request in the past, but we should be, I mean, if that's true, we may need to be going down and asking them for some money. I don't know.
Well, if I might, Mayor Pro Tem, I believe y'all remember, so it was February or the March meeting of 22 when y'all set up and allocated the funds for all the different buckets, and then had sort of a key advisory committee that we would partner with for youth development. The school district was indicated, and I do believe the intent of the commission at that time was recognizing that CCSD also had funds, that there would be some partnership in that area, hopefully that would come out of that discussion.
We have less than 15 minutes. 13 minutes. What y'all want to do?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Um,
So be it.